You're likely familiar with many of the important roles that vitamins and minerals play within our overall health and well-being, such as vitamin C and vitamin D. But what about vitamin E? This vitamin does not get as much press as the other vitamins, but it still plays a crucial role in your overall health and well-being. But what role is this and how does it go about doing that? That is exactly what we're exploring on this week's episode of the Exercise is Health podcast. We're sitting down with world-renowned vitamin E expert, Dr. Barrie Tan, to explore this topic in depth. We're going to cue the intro song and we're going to dive right into this conversation. Welcome to the Exercise is Health podcast, where we're talking about exercise, health, and the interconnectedness of the two. We are your hosts, Charlie
and Julie,
and we will be coming to you every single week from our studio, Muscle Activation Schaumburg. Hey, what's going on, exercisers? This is Charlie. Before we dive into this week's episode, I want to let you know about a new training that's happening this week titled How to Rebuild Your Aching Body in as Little as 6 weeks Without Changing Your Lifestyle. See, if you love the discussions that we have every single week on the Exercise is Health podcast, but you want more of the practical application, the details of how to take the information and apply it to your workouts, then you need to be on this training. All you have to do to get registered for free is go to secrets.exerciseforlifemethod.com. But space is limited, so make sure to get registered ASAP. Now, without further ado, let's dive into this week's episode. Hey, welcome back, exercisers, to the Exercise is Health podcast. We are your hosts, Charlie
and Julie,
and we're coming to you from our studio, Muscle Activation Schaumburg, here in Schaumburg, Illinois, where we believe that your health is your most valuable asset, and the single best thing that you can do to both boost and protect this asset is exercise. Specifically, exercise is geared towards building the health and function of your muscles. Now, so many of you exercisers have taken the time to leave us a rating and review on Apple Podcasts, and it means the world to us when you take 30 seconds to do that. Really, it does not take long at all. If you haven't yet, pause this right now, scroll down, hit that 5 stars, give us some quick feedback about how you're enjoying the episodes, any value you've gained from the episodes, and when you do that, it just warms our heart. It really, really means a lot to us because it tells us that, yeah, what we're putting out, it actually means something to you. And so because of that, we actually want to highlight a review that we recently received.
This review says, Charlie and Julie's weekly podcasts are awesome. The two of them, as well as their guests, speak on different topics all related to our health, and I've learned so much. In many of their podcasts, I feel like they're specifically talking to me. Every week, I look forward to each new episode. Thank you for sharing your wisdom and that of your guests with the rest of us so that we can all be the best version of ourselves. Thank you so much for that 5-star review. Again, if you wouldn't mind pausing this episode, scrolling to the bottom of your app and leaving us that 5-star rating review, and you never know, you might hear your review on the podcast next week.
Now, I like that review highlighted the importance of our guests because we have some amazing guests, and today's guest is absolutely no exception to that. In fact, today's guest is a world-renowned expert in the topic of vitamin E and how necessary vitamin E is for our overall health, our well-being, and longevity. So today's guest is Dr. Barrie Tan, and he is hailed as a trailblazer and the world's foremost expert on vitamin E. A scientist first and foremost, Dr. Tan earned his PhD in chemistry and biochemistry and spent several years as a professor at UMass. His research expertise includes lipid-soluble nutrients that impact chronic conditions. He was the first to introduce the benefits of vitamin E to the nutrition industry and developed some of the world's leading vitamin E products. Dr. Tan continues to collaborate with numerous universities worldwide to further his research on vitamin E. Okay, now fair warning, this episode does have a lot of science talk, but Dr. Tan actually does a really nice job of making the science talk super applicable. So I give you that warning because if we're saying words that like you don't know what they mean right immediately, just stick with it because Dr. Tan helps us see this through and make sure that it's crystal clear by the end. Okay, so I don't want you to get overwhelmed. I don't want you to get intimidated by the language that's being used. It will all be cleared up by the end. Just listen through it. It will be well worth your time. Well, Dr. Tan, thank you so much for joining us and welcome to our show.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm glad to be in your show.
Fantastic. I'm really excited about today's conversation because it's not one that we've had on our podcast before. We're going to be focusing a lot on vitamin E. Now, I know your expertise is widespread, but you do have a more narrow focus on nutrition and using, the botanicals and nature to help our bodies heal, and using the chemistry of it all to, figure out how to do that. So can we start off and just kind of very general, like, what actually is vitamin E? We know about vitamin D, we know about vitamin C. Some of us have heard about vitamin B, but what is vitamin E, and like, why is it even important?
Yes, thank you. Great question. Vitamin E is a very American affair. It was discovered by two pediatricians at UC Berkeley exactly 100 years ago, 1922. And they found that there was a compound in spinach at the time. And then lack of this compound, the fetus is unable to go to full term. And therefore, and then they follow the discovery of the first vitamin, then they call it the number A, B, C, D. And then so chronologically, they just put E. The compound happened to be alpha tocopherol. So I don't know if the audience knows, vitamin E as in alpha tocopherol was first discovered as a birth vitamin. Most of us know that vitamin E is more as an antioxidant.
Right.
The antioxidant came soon after. So now I get you one perspective. Another simple perspective is the molecule of vitamin E, they are lipid soluble. Unlike vitamin B and C, they are water soluble. So this lipid soluble means that they dissolve in oil and fat. So examples of other lipid soluble vitamin would be D and K. So they are lipid soluble. So it's part of that series, not the water soluble series. So it's another broad aspect. Why are they lipid soluble? They look in a picture like a tadpole. And the antioxidant thing is on the head, and the tail thing is what we call if I purposely get out of screen, this one you see, hydrogen and carbon. Because if you think of a cell like a bean, and the cell is encapsulated by biomembrane, and the phosphate group stick outside the water, and the tail will be fatty acid. We like the tail to be loaded with omega-3, and you probably have interviewed other people like that. When you have fatty acid like that, the fat need to be protected. Otherwise, it gets oxidized. What is this thing? I will give you the simplest understanding of oxidation and antioxidation. A lot of people claim everything and their grandmother dog is an antioxidant. So it's kind of like trite, it's overused. So like that, but I will make it simple. If you think of a roadkill or a stick of butter that you put outside, that off smell is an oxidation of the fat. So yes, you can have antioxidant for protein, for nucleic acid. By the time your protein and nucleic acid and carbohydrate is oxidized, that is very, very bad shape. Okay. So the first and lowest thing, easiest thing to get oxidized would be your fat. So I care first and foremost about protecting the fat. So now, if I can reduce that understanding, where more than half of all our fat in our body is not in the love handle and things that you can easily see, is actually on the cell wall. Yeah. And therefore, because of that, and we have 38 trillion cells. That is a very big number. We have about 7.5 billion people, 5,000 times the population of the earth. Is 38 billion. And we have all 38 billion cells in one human body of about 130 to 160 pounds. So I purposely do this so that you can get it in an understanding. And in each of these cells, there's antioxidant. And the most potent antioxidant, they look like a tadpole. That would be a vitamin E molecule compared to all or any of the other antioxidants that you heard about, which they are, but they are not lipid antioxidant. Some of them are lutein, lycopene, beta-carotene, astaxanthin, resveratrol. You can go on and on that. Sure. Glutathione like that, and then they give it name like a master antioxidant. I can tell you this. The one that fit into the cell is a vitamin E molecule, and hence, for the last 50 years, people know vitamin E as an antioxidant. Now, before I know I'm already taking too much of this time like that, between tocopherol and tocotrienol, Vitamin E have two sets, tocopherols and tocotrienol. The tail of a tocopherol longer. The tail of a tocotrienol is shorter. So when they go on the bean shape of the cell, the tocopherol will go around like this. And then to capture the oxygen. And the tocotrienol will spin 50 times faster. And because of that, it can capture oxygen radical that would protect it from destroying the fat faster, 50 times faster. So because of that, tocotrienol is a much, much more potent antioxidant to allow the gating of the cell. Because in the cell wall, what goes in and what comes out is very gated. So if it is not protected and compromised, then the aging process, the basic understanding of the aging process is compromised if they're not gated properly.
So let me touch on that for a second, because I think this is a really important point that I want to make sure that our audience picks up. When you're saying that the fat is oxidized, like if people are hearing this and they're thinking, and you brought this up, you're not thinking fat like love handles or belly fat or something like that. What you're talking about is actually all of our cells have what's called a phospholipid bilayer, where meaning the walls of the cell are made of fat. And if those are compromised, then the health of the cell is compromised, the function of the cell is compromised. And what vitamin E does is it goes and it makes sure that structurally the fat walls of all of our cells stays intact. So our cells stay healthy, cells stay functioning. And if that doesn't happen, that's when what we call the aging process starts. Am I recapping that correctly?
You are 100% correct, Charlie. Good. You got it spot on. Yes. And if the audience understand and appreciates this, I consider this to be the understanding of aging. Now, there are other people look at the skin, the this and that, all understood, correct. But I'm giving you a global, simplistic understanding. And it is correct because all of us are put together through the cells. And the cells are just specialized cells. Our skin cell, our nail cell, our hair cell, and cells that we can't see in our body like that. They're all cells. If you were to have a biopsies, this and that, and the pathologist will look in a microscope, they're looking at cells of the heart, cells of this, cells of that. So at the end of the day, I'm strongly with the understanding of nutrition. For the betterment of our human life, it has to do with the cell. And when the compromising of the cell, then other things is going to be no good.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So I know you brought up spinach as far as like the initial discovery of vitamin E, like where it was found. Is vitamin E found in other food sources, or really is supplementation kind of our best bet?
Good question. Vitamin E can be found in food sources, particularly fatty, oily food sources. So in vegetable oil and in meat, anything that have oil and fat they will have. So it's amazing that they first found it in spinach, which almost have no oil. Like that, but they found very tiny amount like that. And then they found it in barley also, and in oats, very small amount. But mostly they're found in oily material like avocado, like soybean, like corn. That's why we have corn oil and soy oil like that, or canola oil. So you typically find it in those areas. If you take it from normal food sources, you will probably get about 10 milligrams of vitamin E as in tocopherol, or 15 at the most. That's for tocopherol. For tocotrienol, in a typical American diet, you probably will not get more than 2 to 3 milligrams. So 2 to 3 milligrams of tocotrienol from food, and probably about 10 to 15 milligrams at most of tocopherol from food. And that's not enough to be...
I was going to ask, is that enough for us, like to help, promote longevity, or should we be
not enough? Because if you think of the human body, right, with 38 trillion cells, that's a lot of membrane biolayer when you add them up. So I deem that for normal antioxidant health is probably somewhere between 100 to 200 milligram, depending on the weight of the person. So that would be the big concept idea.
Yeah. So at most, we're getting like 5 to 10% of what we need from our food. If we just use food sources. And so then is the solution then to start to supplement with vitamin E? Would that be the next step?
Yeah, I would think so. And if the audience want to know why this is, think of a person. They have no ill or any problems, but they are strongly athletic. They do a lot of exercise, so you can tell they're breathing a lot because you need oxygen to live. And let's say for every 10,000 oxygen you take, one of the oxygen will go haywire. The audience may ask, what is the meaning of haywire? Do you become free radical? Very simple. Oxygen is O2. It's just oxygen. Remember, you're talking to a chemist, but I try to not make it complicated, but make it very simple. We have to have oxygen, and then we release carbon dioxide. Only plants do the opposite. They take CO2, one carbon at a time, CO2, and then they release oxygen, and that's why plants make all kinds of phytonutrients with carbon. But in the human body, we take oxygen and release carbon dioxide. So we need that to live. But in 1 in every 10,000, something of the oxygen will go wrong. What would be an example of oxygen that will go wrong? O2 is oxygen. O3 is ozone. O3, it is a molecule, O3, and O3 is super reactive. So if you form a radical, then it's going to, and then it is too active, it's trying to quench itself so that to reduce back to reduce that to stable state, base state, that's not active. And the easiest way for the oxygen to go after so that it can quench itself and stabilize itself is to go after fat. And particularly fat that are unsaturated, and those fat are lining the cell wall of our body. So we don't want that to happen. So the way to make that not happen is to find a scavenger. We call it free radical scavenger, and tocotrienol and tocopherol are great for doing that. You see an oxygen is very active, it go after them and quench them so they would not present themselves to go after the fat. In simplistic term, that is how an antioxidant works.
I love it. Thank you for explaining that. I love that. So I'm pulling from something I studied in grad school. And so correct me if I'm wrong, but if it's right along the right lines, I'd love for you to expand on it. But it's this relationship between vitamin E and vitamin C. And as we go through and our body uses vitamin E, if I'm remembering correctly, this was a number of years ago, but does vitamin C have the ability to, and I don't know if replenish is the right word, but like help out vitamin E and make vitamin E work better? Am I remembering? Is there anything in that relationship?
You did remember it correctly.
Okay.
That understanding of vitamin C and E require the understanding of the interface, because vitamin C is water soluble. Vitamin E is lipid soluble. So I know the audience cannot see that, but you can. If you think of this a yellow pen here, above is water soluble, below is lipid soluble. Right on the interface here, the vitamin C will come on here. The vitamin E will become oxidized when it keeps the free radical from not going after the fat in here. When it does, the vitamin E will become oxidized, and the tocotrienol and tocopherol will. Then the vitamin C above it will make the vitamin E that has been oxidized whole again. So and then by that, and then the vitamin C is washed off. That's why you have to take more vitamin C, because vitamin C in the water phase, typically if you say 100 milligram of vitamin E as in tocotrienol, you probably need to take no less than 500 milligram of vitamin C, and many people take 1 gram or 2 gram because vitamin C doesn't stay in the body, it just pee off. The molecule of vitamin C look like sugar. I don't know if the audience, it doesn't have caloric value, but the structure of vitamin C look like sugar. It's polyhydroxy, so it's water soluble. So in other words, most of the vitamin C is a pee off in the first 2 urinal pass. So therefore, people take a lot more vitamin C, but it continuously regenerates the vitamin E.
Okay, cool. If I remember, and this is probably outside the scope of this conversation, but just because I'm interested in refreshing my own memory now. It donates its electrons to vitamin E. It reduces vitamin E, and so then
by donating electron, therefore it reduces the oxidized vitamin E and make it whole again. So when you make it whole again, then it would be able to do the job to capture the oxygen. The vitamin C is unable to capture the oxygen radical because the oxygen radical is in the lipid, and the vitamin C can't get there. So it's kind of like Starkey and Hutch, it's hand in glove with the C. So the C and E work hand in hand, but the one that is the Minuteman doing the job to capture the radical is E.
Okay.
And then the C will revive and replenish the E again. So personally then, I take 1 gram of vitamin C a day, and I take about 300 in my case, I take 300 milligram of tocotrienol a day because I have hypercholesterolemia. So that not only do I need to contain my oxidation, I also want to be sure that the inflammation is reduced. And tocotrienol, unlike tocopherol, will also contain your inflammation in your body.
Okay, awesome. So let's explore that a little bit more. I wanted to talk about, when somebody is looking potentially for a vitamin E supplement, do you just get something off the shelf that says vitamin E, or will some supplements differentiate saying, hey, this much tocopherol, this much
Tocotrienol.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I would say this. First, I'll take a step back. If you go to a store, you go online, be prepared. 90 to 95% of vitamin E out there would be tocopherol. So you have to be discriminating. It's only 5 to 10% of the time they're selling tocotrienol like that. And you do not need tocopherol. I said at the beginning that we already consume about 10 to 15 milligram tocopherol. That is enough. For your tocopherol to be protected in your body. People do supplement 300 milligram, 400 milligram, 1000 milligram tocopherol like that. In the 1990s all the way to 2005, there were very, very large scale study of vitamin E as in tocopherol. Almost all of those studies failed. And some of them may do some harm. So you can read it in the literature. If you Google vitamin E, whenever you say vitamin E did no good or possibly do some harm, be understanding. That is referring to tocopherol that it was done. In the 1990s, simultaneously, also the understanding of tocotrienol studies started to go up. This is when I got into the ball game, and we have done many animal studies, and almost all of them on chronic condition. What example of chronic condition? Pre-diabetes, sugar high but not too high, diabetes, sugar off the chart, and people with metabolic syndrome, all chronic conditions, postmenopausal women with osteopenia, not yet osteoporosis. Now we are studying people with overweight and obesity, chronic conditions. And finally, now the end game, we're studying people with fatty liver disease, where the liver is containing too much fat. And the condition is called non-alcohol fatty liver disease. The acronym is NAFLD. So if you Google on the internet, NAFLD, it's very awkwardly put because the liver look like people with alcohol cirrhosis. It's bad situation. So like that. So, but it's not because of alcohol, because of dietary thing, and hence the condition. It was first discovered not too far from where you come from the Mayo Clinic in Minneapolis. So it's called non-alcohol fatty liver disease. And when they go too far to the right, a bad situation, it's called NASH, non-alcohol steatohepatitis. So in other words, they're hepatic liver, and they're not having anything to do with hepatitis A, B, and C. It's just fatty liver due to dietary concern. And that dwarf any other kind of liver condition, all chronic condition. And the final study that we have, kind of chronic also in Denmark, we have 8 clinical studies on people with severe case of cancers.
Wow. And vitamin E is effective, has been helpful in all those cases?
Yeah. Yes, in all of those cases. And in particular, none of those things work on tocopherol. All of them we tried are on tocotrienol, with a small exception on NAFLD, that the alpha tocopherol work. So my championing to the audience would be that when you go online to buy vitamin E, remember more than 90% of time will be tocopherol. Do not get them. Look for tocotrienol, and then when you see tocotrienol, you will see three sources: the rice, the palm, and the annatto. All these sources I have discovered. I spent 35 years of my life on this, all of them. And then let me give you the distinction of the three. Now, we're not talking on tocopherol. They will be from soybean, corn, and all the other things. Only on the tocotrienol, rice, palm, and annatto. The difference in this. In rice is 50-50, meaning that half of it will be tocopherol, half of it will be tocotrienol. Then in palm, 25% tocopherol, 75% tocotrienol, better. And then in annatto, 100% the real McCoy, just the tocotrienol. I'm amazed to discover this when I was in South America 25 years ago.
So cool.
You can see it was a younger me when I was
in Ecuador, like that.
It is fully an Amazonian plant. If you look at this picture, I know the audience can't see that. The seed you see here that I extracted it from is the size of grape seed. Therefore, the entire frog is the size of a dime. It's an Amazonian tree frog, and the tree frog. And the Amazonian tree frog is discovered in Amazonia in Brazil, and the canopy there. So to tell you that this annatto plant is actually from there. I'm just lucked out. I'm not by profession and a medicine man. I just happen to be in the right place at the right time. So therefore, I can say this, even though I rapidly say this, like very secularistic. I think that there is a part of me that is very spiritual. You went there, you look for something else, and somebody hand you a plate. Say, "Wow, what about this plant?" I just happened to ask the right question at the right time and discover it. I owe it to the public to talk about this compound because it actually matters to people's life. So in a sense, inadvertently and probably reluctantly, it was a hacking. It's a botanical hacking. It's not a human. I just happened to find it out, and then I'm so grateful that when I begin to do first test tube study and then do animal study, now I got 35 years in this, and then I begin to do the clinical trials I mentioned to you. Right now, this product, all the clinical study, they do work. They do work to mitigate the metabolites in the body, metabolites such as sugar, such as triglyceride, such as cholesterol. We need all these things to live, to have it in the even keel and baseline rather than off the baseline. And then also on clinical trials on cancer. Grateful on all of this. So you are hearing this probably for the first time, not vitamin E, not the tocopherol, but vitamin E as in the tocotrienol.
So cool. So cool.
Thank you.
Well, hey, Dr. Tan, thank you so much for sharing all this information with us. Where can people learn more about you? How can they connect with you and follow your work?
Okay. Thank you for asking that question. And then you can see this, right? You can read it here.
Yes.
AmericanRiverNutrition.com. That is where you can download all the different things we have. Or BarrieTan.com, my podcast about annatto and press releases will be there. Or if you have questions, you can send me an email, live@american-river.com.
Fantastic.
I'll try to answer your question to the best of my ability. And we only have 3 products. And all of them come from this lovely plant annatto. First, we remove the color. And you're in the Midwest, the color is used to, it's not a weird plant. The color is used to color cheeses. The yellowish orangey hue is a natural color in meats and in yogurt and in ice cream, many different things like that. I remove the color. And then, you know why? The color is intensely unstable. The plant make the tocotrienol to protect the oxidative protection of the color from degradation. So, by the way, sometimes we get this in our head that, the plant is intended for the human health. The plant is never intended for the human health. We just got it into our head. The
Sure.
plant only make chemical for itself. We're
Yeah.
just lucky, and we should be grateful that we eat plants, So the man take the tocotrienol to protect the color. So I removed the color. I got the tocotrienol, and after I finished, I saw another little light yellowish oil in the bottom. That's when I discovered this compound, similar to the tocotrienol. This compound is used by the plant. It crop off here and stick it to a ring, and they use this compound to make tocotrienol. So the plant does it, and now this is in the plant. It's called Geranol, GG. I know it's a long word, Jana. If you go to my website, you can download the paper on this. I'm leading to something. Allow me to do this like that. In the plant, this compound is used to make chlorophyll. So therefore, it's essential to life because all plant photosynthesize.
Yeah.
It's used to make the color of your food. All the carotenoid, beta carotene in carrot, lycopene in tomato, astaxanthin in like that. So this compound is used to make that. So this is essential. This is the last compound between the plant kingdom and the animal kingdom. It's a big difference. It's not like one species to the next. It's one genus to the next here. So this in the human, because we are part of the animal kingdom, this compound is used for synthesizing. Let's hold your breath on it. It's used for the synthesis of CoQ10. It's used CoQ10. Everybody know CoQ10. And in the background here, you see that? I have the structure of CoQ10. You can see the tail, the black and white thing. There's the entire black and white. So you need 2.5 of this to make the entire molecule of CoQ10. Sure. I know the audience cannot see this. If you go to my website, you can download the picture. We have GG, but I leave the best last. About 30 to 40% of our weight is muscle. And you and your wife encourage people to do exercise. Doing exercise help us to retain our muscle mass so that as we're in the middle of our life, it will maintain the muscle mass. In the younger part of our life, it will build muscle mass like that, obviously, during puberty and above. And then in the elderly life, to prevent muscle mass loss, the condition called sarcopenia, like that. We all know about this, and resistive exercise help that. And you are the champion. You and your wife are the champion on this. I'm only talking about adding the part. Most people will take protein shake. They will take amino acid. Those are the composition that make the protein. Now, so where the GG fit? This is not an amino acid. When you take protein shake and you take amino acid, they are not the structure of your protein. I am sure your audience are hearing this for the first time. Proteins in your body is made inside the holy of holy in the nucleus. You're probably hearing it for the first time. You take all the protein will become chopped liver. They have to be digested into amino acid, and all the 20 essential amino acids go into your body. So when you go into your body, you think that they'll re-stitch up magically and be protein of your skin, of your eyeball, of your this and that. No, they are just a feed material. And then in the DNA, they are structured gene. And the gene will say, you need this amino acid, remember there are 20 essential amino acids. Let's think of a very simple protein with only 10 amino acids stitched together precisely. So the first one, your possibility of 1 in 20, 1 in 20, the next one, like that. So after you finish making the whole thing, you know what the probability is? It's 20 to the power of 10. That is larger than the original meaning of Google. It's larger. So therefore, making of protein, right, is genetic thing. In the making of protein, because the protein molecule is so large, it's like an albatross. So when the protein is half made, the molecule is already very large. There is a hook that hold on to that. That hook that hold on to the partially made albatross is a simple, unassuming, non-amino acid GG.
Wow.
So you got it. Therefore, GG is essential for the body's ability to make protein. This is a well-kept secret. Please come to my website and download the white paper to read it for yourself. So therefore, as we age, we cannot make enough GG. So therefore, one of the reasons we don't make enough protein, sarcopenia, like that, it is simply because we don't make enough GG. So now, oftentimes people say you don't make enough CoQ10 because CoQ10 is ubiquitous and you don't make enough CoQ10 because aging. Now I can tell you two statements. We don't make enough CoQ10 as we age because we don't make enough GG. And also if CoQ10 is called ubiquinone. CoQ10 is ubiquitous. You know why? Because GG is ubiquitous. It is a thing our body makes. So for the first time in the world, in United States, I might add, we make this GG, and then I want to tell the audience that I'm very passionate about this.
I love it.
I'm not born in the United States. I'm very grateful to be an immigrant many years ago. I live in Massachusetts. I have many opportunity for people to tell me that I can make this in some other countries much less expensive. I said, no. He said, this country have given me a lot. So I wanted to do it here. So this compound is made here and it's still, after having said all of those, it's extracted from a plant. It's not a synthetic material. And this thing will benefit people. So right now we are conducting some studies on this. Many of your audience will know this. If you have high cholesterol, your diabetes, your doctor is probably asking you to take a statin drug. Statin drug lower cholesterol. You and I and the audience would know. If you take statin, your CoQ10 drop. Even in every bottle of CoQ10, you go to Costco, you see this. I'm going to connect some dots for you. Your doctor less will ask you if your CoQ10 drop will matter because they're very allopathic doctor. They'll say, Mrs. Jones, Mr. Jones, do you have back problem and muscle problem? They're fishing for myopathy. Do you know why? When you take statin drug, not only inhibit cholesterol synthesis, it also inhibit GG synthesis.
Wow.
That's why they're fishing for myopathy. So myopathy, right, is a drug-induced muscle problem.
Wow.
Sarcopenia is an age-induced thing. So, but however, our industry, our people know that if you take statin drug, CoQ10 drop. And the CoQ10 drop because GG drop.
Wow.
So GG is responsible for CoQ10 drop as well as myopathy. So I just given you the simplest lowdown that GG is the reason why people have myopathy, why people have sarcopenia, and why your CoQ10 drop, whether it's drug-induced or age-induced.
Wow.
Took so much time on this, but I hope this will be a blessing to the audience who hear this. And before you just run to the store to buy, you can run to the store to buy GG. How about read what GG is used in your body and what Tocotrienol is used in your body? You can do the white paper. We only have 3 products. And we don't sell finished product, by the way. We list all the 20 or so company you can buy from. And the third one is we have a product where the GG is combined to the CoQ10. Because that is and then we call it dual quinol. So that's it. For all these 20, 30 years, nothing else but this. And so we project ourselves as the education thing. We do not sell finished product, but you can buy from other people. So if you have questions, if such a product is from us, you can send us an email. They usually will put our trade name on. If they do that, then you can see that they make that themselves, but they buy the ingredient from us to do that. So I hope this will be a blessing to your audience for hearing this.
This was amazing, Dr. Tan. Thank you so much. The question that we like wrapping up with all of our guests is, what is your definition of health?
I have it actually written, so because you asked the question, so I'm going to read it. This is the only time that I'm actually reading from my note. My definition of health is this: exercise is the one size that fits all. Why do I say this? Now, I probably a fraction of doing what you and your wife love to do and in your business. I consider that I cannot sit in my office the whole day. So as of 2-3 years ago, I started walking. Initially, I can do 5,000 steps, and that was big for me. And then I thought, wow, I cannot imagine I can do more. And believe it or not, last year I was able to do 10,000 steps, and this year it looked like I may be able to do 15,000 steps. And I know it's a very small exercise compared to other resistive exercise that I also would need to do. After 15 minutes of walking, you would already have circulated. I'm a biologist. You can see why I talk like this. After 15 minutes of walking, you would already have circulated your blood throughout your body. So if I walk for half an hour or 45 minutes, all the sugar that is circulated in your 5 liter of blood is already been converted to energy. So by just simply doing that, my friend, the control of the sugar already come to normality, and then after that, it will look for other fat in my cell to burn it for conversion. So if not for anything else, my friend will listen. If you just exercise about 20 to half an hour a day, if you can afford more, then great, of course, like that, you will already reduce your sugar to baseline. So if you are pre-diabetic or diabetic, 100% this will be good. And of course, if you do the exercise that Julie and Charles would do it in the exercise place, you'll probably reduce your sugar even faster.
I love it.
I'm only doing something that is simplistic like that. So I consider that. So that would be my definition of health in the non-food area. But I also have a definition of health in the food and supplement area. In that area, we are a country of significant abundance. We don't have to eat in huge excess. So eat enough is enough. So, but I don't want to say caloric restriction in the sense that a person is overly overweight or obese, then you have restrict. But even for normal person, if you take enough, I didn't want to say for me because I'm 5'4" and 125 pounds. So therefore 1,500 calorie is good enough. So you have to adjust on the person. So if you eat enough, that would be, so I call it caloric restriction. And to supplement well. So on the food and supplement thing, caloric restriction, supplement well. On the non-food thing, exercise is one size that will fit all. So I'm really excited for you and your wife to do what you're doing. And for all the audience who listen, please listen to this couple who tell them to you folks about exercising, because exercise is important. You know, maybe one of these days I'll track to your place and you and your wife will give me some coaching. Besides my regular walking, what else should I do?
That would be amazing. We'd love to have you here, Dr. Tan. Well, hey, thank you so much for sharing your time, sharing your expertise. This was just absolutely fascinating. Not only your stories of discovery, but the practical application for all of us, the importance of vitamin E for our health, for our longevity. This was just fantastic. Thank you so much. We really appreciate you, Dr. Tan.
Well, thank you so much also for having me to speak. I will add this: when our clinical trials finish with our fatty liver disease, and when our GG clinical trial finish, maybe we can have a follow-up interview, not of the vitamin E. Of course, I can give some updates of the vitamin E, but specifically on CoQ10 and GG. It would take me, particularly CoQ10 and GG, as they relate to muscle, because it's so important on
that would be awesome.
Regime. You know?
Oh, we'd love that conversation. Yeah, we can definitely get that on the books. That's fantastic.
Yeah. Thank you so much, and we'll have a wonderful weekend and blessing to all of you. And keep in good health.
You as well, Dr. Tan. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Wow, was that interview just fascinating or what? I mean, Dr. Tan is just brilliant, and his expertise on vitamin E and all the different forms of it, I mean, it's just incredible, isn't it? So who do you know that needs to hear this episode? Who do you know that is wanting to do some cutting edge things to build their health and make sure that they are able to stay feeling well for as long as possible? Share this episode with them so they can learn the immense benefits of not only vitamin E, but the specific types and how they can go about taking it on a regular basis. And while you're online, head on over to Apple Podcasts and leave us a rating and review. It helps people find episodes like this when they're looking for information on exercise and when they're looking for information on health. So if you found value in this conversation today, let us know by leaving us a 5-star rating and review. Well, thanks so much for tuning in. We always appreciate it. Have a fantastic week, and we'll talk with you all next week. So what'd you think about that episode? Did you find the information useful? If you enjoyed what we discussed during today's episode of the Exercise is Health podcast, then you are going to love what I'm going to be presenting during my new training, How to Rebuild Your Aching Body in as little as 6 weeks without changing your lifestyle. It's happening this week, and you can get registered for free by going to secrets.exerciseforlifemethod.com. But space is limited, so you need to head there now. secrets.exerciseforlifemethod.com, and I can't wait to see you there. This podcast is for information purposes only. The statements and views on this podcast are not medical advice. This podcast, including Julie and Charlie Gates, disclaim responsibility for any possible adverse effects from the use of information contained herein. Opinions of guests are their own, and this podcast does not endorse or accept responsibility for statements made by guests. This podcast does not make any representations or warranties about guest qualifications or credibility. This podcast may contain paid endorsements or advertisements for products or services. Individuals on this podcast may have a direct or indirect financial interest in products or services referred to herein. If you think you have a medical issue, consult a licensed physician.